Greetings and welcome to the Home Slice. This is a standard intro. If you already know what's up with my 40mm Manila rope testing, the ANDE rope test, then you can skip to this time listed on screen. This is where the actual edge test begins. If you haven't been here before, then you've caught me in the middle of a testing series where I'm taking Victorinox knives because they're simple steel that's mainly just steel. There's not a bunch of extra alloys and carbide things going on in them. And I'm testing what different sharpening stones do to them. I'm testing fine, medium, and coarse stones individually. Then I'm taking the best from those and I'm making what's called a dual grit edge. If you're new to the channel, a dual grit edge is where you sharpen one side coarse or medium and the other side of the edge you sharpen fine. It has some really interesting characteristics. Usually it creates an aggressive edge that lasts longer than it normally would with either coarse or fine, with some exceptions, which we're testing to find out. Anyway, my test consists of, I've got a little goofy rig that I slice through a 1 centimeter thick sisal rope, and it's on a 45-degree wedge. It's intended to transfer that force down, and then I measure how many kilograms of pressure it took to slice through the rope while holding the rope vertical. That's intended to take forward motion and quantify how much pressure it took to slice through. This gives you some rough idea of edge aggression. The next test is to cut through a 40mm thick Manila rope, and then I test on a Best machine tester to test how keen and nice the edge stayed. I do that until it's over 400 grams on the Best tester, checking with microscope and checking to see when it loses shaving capability in between tests. After 3, I will hammer the edge into a pine piano leg, and that's just to see if any of the edges break on impact. There are certain sharpening methods I've found that create an edge that's not as robust to impact tasks, and I want to kind of weed those out because for a working edge, I want it to be reasonably durable. Anyway, that's what we're testing for today. In just a second, we'll skip right over to the test footage, and I will let you know what the finishing stone that we're actually testing was. What is up? Welcome back to the Home Slice, my friends. Today we're testing the Spyderco 400 grit CBN plate. I've been very excited to test this since I tested the 800 grit and it was a monster of aggression, and we have a pretty high best number, but just to remind you, we're going through our coarse stones looking for an adequate dual grit edge. So I'm not too bothered on these super coarse stones by a little bit higher of best numbers, because we'll clean all that up when we make a dual grit edge out of it. 0.9 net kgs on the aggression, and here we find an edge that is extremely aggressive, a sort of characteristic of CBN edges that I have used so far. It seems like there's really good edge aggression without a lot of evident bending in the microscope at 1000 times. It flies through the first piece of rope and actually comes in under 400 grams, which can be quite a feat for a really coarse stone. Flies through the second one and we're up over 400 grams. Because it feels super aggressive still, I'm going to keep testing and just see how the testing plays out, looking for that perfect coarse stone. And again, it's at 466, but I can feel the aggression is making it so easy to get through that Manila rope that we're going to finish out the test with this CBN 400 grit stone. I'm thinking that it is the equal of my 250 grit diamond stone. And indeed, it returns a 2.5 kg net slicing aggression, which brings us to 1.6 kg of aggression lost over the course of the test. That's among the best numbers that we've got, not quite as good as the coarse Norton Crystalline stone, but very good nonetheless. You can see there's still lots of texture. You can see a lot of the shapes that were imparted to the edge by the stone haven't changed too much, which is really good. To my eye, there's no super visible reflections from the edge that are new, that show the edge waving in and out, or unduly bending. But we're going to put that theory harder to the test by smashing it with a 5 kg dumbbell 9 times and coming back and looking at that portion of edge in the microscope. But before we do, we check to find that the best is 498 grams, which is 32 grams of observed loss, and a pretty average number for a coarse stone that doesn't minimize the damage to the edge very well. Looking at this impact zone that went into the pine piano leg, it's evident that there's still texture there. It hasn't rounded out. I don't see any large chips. A promising candidate for dual grit. If you want to see my last test, it's on the screen now. For all the rest of you, I'll say, hey, peace out from the home slice.